Hi, I'm Chris M. Selecki. I'm the Senior Digital Copy Editor for DIA. I'm in the DIA Media booth here at our 2023 Global Annual Meeting in Boston. And it's my pleasure to be here today with Natalia Husby. Thank you for joining us today, Natalia. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
So let's give you the chance to introduce yourself. Who are you? What do you do? For what organization do you do it for?
Yeah. So my name is Natalia. I work for Curavit Clinical Research. We're the world's first all-virtual contract research organization, and we specialize in decentralized or virtual clinical trials, and also specifically focus in digital therapeutics. And my role is a business development manager at Curavit.
Thank you. What is your experience with DIA? Is this your first annual, or have you been here before?
Yeah, it's actually my first conference, so I'm really excited to be here. I think there's so many different opportunities to learn from, clinical trials to pharma to recent advancements in AI and diversity. So I'm really excited to be here and to learn.
So we're really grateful that you're willing to talk about a very important topic. And so let's start back at the beginning with you personally. When did you first realize that you were interested in a career in science?
Yeah.
Life sciences.
Yeah, I think I can't pinpoint an exact time. I think I've always been really interested in the hows and the whys of life. So what about our early life experiences can potentially influence us later in life and who we become and different questions like that. And from a really early age, I was exposed to science because my dad, when we lived in Brazil, was a clinical psychologist. And my mom, she studied sociology. So growing up, I always was really exposed to understanding human behavior, why we act the way we do. And in grade school, I got really involved with Science Olympiad, which exposed me to different types of science, from biology to medical, and I think it always kind of was there, the interest, and it just kept growing and growing. And eventually I went to college, I studied psychology, then over to neuroscience to learn the biological mechanisms behind behavior. And then from there, I went into biotech, and now I'm in clinical research. So yeah, I think it's been growing and evolving, but it's definitely been different throughout my life.
I will eternally regret not being able to take advantage of the opportunity to follow up and ask you, why do we do what we do? But I think what I'd like to do instead is, sitting where you are here today, looking back at yourself then, is there advice that you know now that you believe would have been useful to you then? Experiences, things you've learned? If there's a young girl interested in career in science watching this now, what advice would you give?
Yeah, I think there's three major things. First, if you're interested in it, I think go for it. Don't let anybody or anything impede you from wanting to pursue that interest in that career. Because science can be kind of initially intimidating. Different scientific fields have their own language, and with those languages, it can be really just shocking. Oh, am I not smart enough? Why don't I understand this? Those thoughts, I think it's good to just remind yourself, it is like learning a new language. So you really just have to, be persistent. If you're interested in it, you'll eventually get there. And it's not a question of being smart enough, but it's a question of following your interests and, staying determined. The other thing is, I think that when I was younger, I thought I knew exactly what I was going to be when I grew up. And I thought I was going to be a psychologist and I was going to be a therapist. But in life, as you get older and you get new experiences and you're exposed to things you haven't been exposed to before, you start to realize that maybe that original idea isn't exactly what I want to do. So being open to potential different avenues and opportunities and just kind of following your passions as they grow and evolve, I think is so important, rather than just sticking to one game plan.
That's good advice regardless of gender.
Yeah.
I would think, right?
That's true. Yeah, definitely.
Are there new opportunities that you see in the life sciences today that you didn't have? Are there new opportunities that you see? And if so, what are some of those? Where are some of the areas for growth that we're seeing?
Areas for growth. I think it's really exciting to see more and more women moving into leadership positions in science. I thankfully was exposed to that in college. Like I had professors who were women who were kind of like mentors to me. But also on the business side, you're seeing women that are CEOs of biotech companies and like being involved in all different kinds of ways in science. So I think like for me, compared to what I knew back then, it's just the opportunity of going into different avenues within science. It doesn't have to just be in the lab as a research scientist, but also just different routes, like organizations like this and different things like that. Yeah.
That's, again, you used a great phrase that I'd actually like to pick up on. If you were building a toolbox for a life sciences professional in 2023, what needs to be a hand tool?
That's a good question. I think with life sciences, there's so much more now intersection with technology. We're seeing a lot more talks of AI in the biotech world, in pharma, even in clinical research. So I think good skill to have is start to familiarize yourself with those technologies, their potential applications, because I think there's going to be a lot more intersection and needing those skills of not just the science, but understanding the technology and how they can kind of feed off each other and propel science forward. So something that I realized while working in biotech was just how important in the genomics space, analyzing genomic data and understanding coding and things like that, which, when I was in school, I had no idea that was a thing people did, but that's when you start to see that intersection of like computer science, technology, coding with scientific data.
Okay. Two-part question.
Yeah.
What can organizations like DIA, and then what can the life sciences industry in general do to encourage more women to pick up careers in the sciences?
Yes, I think that continue to promote women, give them an opportunity to be a voice and tell their own stories, and also be there to kind of mentor and inspire younger generations. I think also outreach is important. DIA, life sciences, companies, getting involved in local communities and kind of exposing kids who might not have an opportunity to be involved in scientific, say, summer camps, things like that, just to give them a chance to really see, like, this is something that I could do, and here's an opportunity for me to learn it. And I think another thing in terms of, say, like a company organization, for women who work in those organizations, providing flexibility in how they can do their job. Yeah, because with Curavit, something I really appreciate about working there is we can work from home. We don't have to work the 9 to 5 as long as we're doing our work, and we can work at odd hours if we need to, depending on what's going on in our lives. As long as we're available, we can be reached during that 9 to 5. So, women who might have other family obligations or might be in a geographical location that, where they can just work remotely, different things like that, just providing more flexibility.
What did I not ask you that you would really like to talk about? We have a few minutes left. What didn't we ask you that you'd like to share?
So the 3 skills I think are really important for women and people in general to excel in science, I think one is the curiosity to learn, the desire to learn, because in science there's always new things to learn. Running an experiment, you'll discover 10 million other things that need to be figured out. And so there's always something new to explore. And also in business too, like on the business side of science, things don't always go as planned. And so I think the curiosity and the drive to learn will continue to propel you forward in science and keep asking the right questions. The other 2, I think, they kind of go hand in hand. It's persistence and resilience, because so many things go wrong in science, in life, in business. And I think it's really important to not get discouraged when things don't go according to plan, and just, keep trying. It's not going to always be easy. But in those opportunities to where you might not necessarily fail, but things don't go as expected, you can learn from those experiences and help build from them and drive yourself forward. And don't get discouraged when things go wrong, because things always go wrong. Just take that opportunity to learn and keep going.
So we spoke previously about the opportunities for women in clinical research. no opportunities come without challenges. And so, do you have challenges that you could share with our listeners?
Yeah, I think we always need to be aware that not everybody's experience is the same. And, for different women, there might be different challenges, things like their geography, their cultural background, their race, ethnicity, like all these different things that could potentially create more barriers along their journey. And so I think that's why it's really important, bringing it back to opportunities, is really being there for other women and girls, and like being mentors and guiding them through what they're going through and helping them realize this is still something that's achievable no matter what's been thrown in your way. And actually that really ties back to another opportunity. I think it's really important in clinical research specifically. So we're seeing more adoption of decentralized clinical trials. So clinical trials that can be done from a patient's home. I think that's a really exciting opportunity for women who might be traditionally underrepresented in clinical research. Now that they can do it from their own home, they don't have to travel to a specific location. It's just more accessible if they have lots of obligations, whether it's family, whether it's work, whether it's just transportation access. So I think it's a really exciting way for women to be involved in science, even if it's not through their career. And that's something that I'm really passionate about getting to work with in Curavit.
That's an excellent point. And again, I'm really going off script, but you're so good. May I ask what your educational background is? Where's your school, where you went, and what you studied?
Yes, so I did a psychology undergraduate degree, and while I was there, I did research in clinical psychology, specifically focused on Latin American adolescents and their experience of balancing out their, let's say, their home culture, their parents' home culture with the U.S. culture, and how that affected their academic success, their mental health. And so that's kind of been an interest of mine from an early point. And then for my master's, I did neuroscience. I studied neuroscience focused on epigenetics, which is basically a biological process that creates modifications to your DNA and can affect how your genes are translated. So
Thank you for explaining that.
no problem. Yeah, so interestingly, epigenetics, like there's so many environmental factors that can affect how your biology works. And so that's why I really like to think about like different factors in somebody's life and how that could potentially affect their development, how that could affect their behavior and their access to certain things. So
again, related more to your work than to you. Decentralized clinical trials. Again, 2 years from now, what do you expect the biggest change to be in DCTs from now to 2 years from now? And what will drive that change?
That's a great question. I think, with all this talk at DIA of, we really need to work on improving diversity in clinical trials. I think everybody knows it's important, but we're not really sure how to get there. So there's a lot of really interesting, unique ways that people are thinking about different ways to, communicate to different underrepresented populations, having them understand the benefits and the risks of clinical trials. I think in 2 years, we'll have a lot more of a data-driven way to get people involved of all backgrounds, and also designing clinical trials to be more accessible to people, because historically, a big part of the reason why people are not involved is either because they're not aware of the trial, and also because, there's also historical, messed up things that have happened. But another reason is that protocols are not designed to make it accessible to people of different socioeconomic status and different things like that. So I think we're going to see a lot of really great progress in that aspect, and decentralized clinical trials, I think, will be more widely adopted. For example, cancer can be difficult, right? Because there are, there could be injections involved, there's a lot more monitoring involved. But when it comes to mental health and digital therapeutics are basically like a device or an app that's designed to help with, say, depression, anxiety, and they're designed based on proven psychological therapies like cognitive behavioral therapy or dialectical behavior therapy, all these different kinds of psychological models. So I think it's going to be interesting to see digital therapeutics becoming more widely used and studied and hopefully adopted to help support people with mental health issues who might not be comfortable taking a pill to help treat their mental health disorders.
And that's a great place to bring this interview home, because we're here at DIA, and the D does stand for drug. But these days you can't develop drugs without devices, without diagnostics. As the wave of personalization continues to crest, you need to know more and more about your patient to truly execute genuine personalized medicine. And that, what we're talking about, is also moving in that direction.
Yes, personalized medicine, precision health, I think, and with like more adoption of genomics applications too, I think it's going to be really interesting to incorporate, studying somebody's genome as well as like their home environment, as well as like all these different health and, environmental variables, and understanding more deeply like what is the best treatment suited to these individual people. So really exciting time for sure.
Yes, it is. And this has been a really exciting interview.
Oh, thank you.
You were a champ. Thank you, Natalia. It was a genuine pleasure speaking with you. And good luck with the rest of your annual meeting and with your coming up.
Thank you so much. And thanks again for the time with interview.
The DIA, I'm Chris M. Sluett.